Since I have you guys down here, today we're working on this power head for my Undergravel Filter. We're making a DIY spray bar because right now the flow is way too much. I'll show you guys that. I want to try to dissipate it so I can put back all my containers I had floating up here previously so I can continue raising up my CPD fry. So for me right now, this power head here is creating way too much flow for me. You can see just how much flow it's creating in this tank by the air stone that I put in front of it right here. And I don't want to have such a strong directional flow bouncing around to this tank. I want a more even, gradual flow. So I'm hoping that by putting a DIY spray bar here, I'll be able to create a nice current throughout the entire area, and it'll be able to go back up into the Undergravel filter and circulate through the tank. Plus, right now, the flow is too much so that I can't float any of my CPD eggs and fry on top of the tank here because it's just way too much current up there. So to make a DIY spray bar for Undergravel filters, we're going to need some PVC pipe cut to length. We're going to need some sort of adapter and barb fitting to be able to put a piece of plastic tubing onto it that matches with our power head, so that way we can be able to connect the two together. We also are going to need some sort of end cap to cap off the end so the water doesn't come out the end but rather comes out the holes that we're making. So we're going to need a drill to make those holes. We're going to need some way to be able to hold the actual spray bar up once we have assembled it, and we're also going to need some hot water to make this tubing a little bit more malleable so that we can work it onto the barb and to the power head. And finally, we're going to need some sort of measuring device to be able to calculate or to get the right amount of inches or whatever. If you're anal about that, you can do that. If you don't care about it, you don't need it. So I do care, so we're going to be using that today. So notice how I don't have any glue on this table. I don't have any glue on this table because all this is going to be submerged under the water, and if I have holes in here, I should be good to go and should be ready to rock and roll. I don't have to worry about anything blowing off underwater. If it does blow off underwater, I'm not going to have water leaking all over the floor, and it allows me to change these pieces and parts out later down the road if I want to adapt it, or if I want to make this for a larger tank and just take the same thing but just make this tube just a tad bit longer with some of the other tube that I already have. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my PVC pipe that I have here, and I have all of the writing on the back so that when it's in the tank I don't see it, and I'm just going to set this down on the table and run my Sharpie along the length of it, and that should give me a straight line on my painter's tape that should be able to come off, and I went a little bit over, but the cap should go there. I'm then going to take my ruler that I have and line it up for now on the inch mark. So I'm just going to make a tick, a tick, a tick, a tick, a tick, another tick, another tick, and another tick. So in total we have, if you were counting, you'd probably know, but I wasn't. So we have a total of 8 holes that we're going to be making for this spray bar, which should be plenty enough, and if it's not, we can always go back and either add more holes or make the holes larger. So the next thing that I think we should do is go ahead and drill it actually. So the reason why I have this on here, this actual painter's tape on here, so that I can put all my markings on here, be able to drill it, and be able to remove it and not have any of those marks on the actual PVC. So notice here that there's no markings or anything there, but on the back side has all the information, so I'll never see this when it's inside my tank. Alright, let's go ahead and start drilling. Whoopsies. Don't tell my wife. 8. So, now we can clean up this mess real quick that we've made. Clean up, everybody do their share. She'll never even know that we're here. Unless she watches this video, then she'll know. If you are very particular about this, you can take some sandpaper and sand all these pieces down, but I'm really not that particular, so I'm not going to care about that. Alright, now we don't need that drill anymore, so we can be done with all that loud noise. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to warm up our tubing so that we can put it onto our barb as well as our power head adapter here. So we're actually going to do the power head first because this one might be a little bit more challenging, whereas this one is a little bit more of a good fit already. So I just microwaved this water for like 2.5 minutes to make it hopefully malleable enough and warm enough for the plastic to be able to fit on there. Well, you can't make water malleable, but to make it warm enough to make the plastic malleable to be able to fit onto the actual power head adapter. And the good thing is that once this is on there, cooled down, this should not come off at all, because this is going to be a very, very, very tight fit. Ooh. Might have to make a tiny little cut to see if I can't and get it over it. We're just about there. I'll be right back. I'm back. So I found that making a tiny little incision in the plastic that you're trying to put on can help get it onto something that it otherwise normally would not go onto. Alright, after 5 minutes of trying to use warm water to get this piece onto my power head part, it's not working. So what we're going to do is flame it to make it even more malleable and hopefully be able to get it over that power head there. Alright, now this should hopefully work. If this doesn't work, I'm all out of tricks. I don't know what I'm going to do, except have to go out and buy more of this, which I don't want to have to do. Oh, we might be there. Oh, yes. There we go. That will do it. Okay. Now, when this gets hardened on here, it is not going to come off. I'm going to have to cut this entire piece apart, and yeah, this is going to be a nightmare. But it's on. So now you guys know, if you guys don't have the right tubing, you can try warm water to get it on there, make a little tiny slit in it so that it gets on there easier, so they can actually find a way on. And then if all this fails, use some flame. Heat it up a lot, it will extend it out a lot more, and then as soon as it's cooled, it's going to suction on here so tight. So we'll never have to worry about this coming off in the lifetime that I'll be using it probably. Alright, so now that we got that in place, we're going to need to put the actual barb on here, which shouldn't be that difficult. We're just going to put this in the hot water and let it sit there for a bit, and we should be good to go. Let's see how this is doing now. So this is just warm water that I boiled for, or microwave for like 5 minutes, and this should just go right on. So I'm going to try to get it up to on 2 barbs, and once there, it should not go anywhere. There we go. Yep, cool. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. So now that we have this in place, we are going to screw this. I have a little bit of Teflon tape here just to make things a little bit easier, and we're just going to tighten this on. Hand tight will be good enough for what we need, and that works out perfectly. So now we can just go ahead, pop this on, and pop our end cap on, and push on together. And now we have our DIY spray bar. We will have our water coming up through here into here and out this way. And with using these guys here, we can just pop those on, and we can adjust the flow wherever we want it. So if we want it to be facing more downward, we can tilt it more downward. If we want it to be facing more down, we can just keep rotating these around. And if we want to go upwards, we can go even upwards. So a lot of versatility. That's the one good thing about not using PVC glue, is that you can go ahead and water test this, and if I am not liking the spray pattern of this, I can go ahead, unplug it all, and do it again. Well, not do it again, but adjust it to the size of holes that I want, as well as the amount of holes. So let's go try it out. Well, it's a little too long, so we're going to have to take it off real quick and trim it down and try it again in just a second. Alright, so we're going to need to cut almost all of that off there to make it be able to fit. I just didn't take into effect how long this tube was. So thankfully I can just remove it easily from this piece and put it back on, and we'll be on our way. Now that we've gotten shortened up a lot more, we can go ahead and put it back in and try it one more time. Whew! Alright, that should be ready to rock and roll. So let's fire it up and see what happens. So that dust that's coming out is actually from my substrate. So I'm not super concerned about that, but it's a nice, gentle flow, not very strong now. So if we put the air stone back into it, in front of it here, you can see it's hardly blowing it at all, whereas before it was blowing it super far ways away. So I'm really pleased with that, and we'll have to see how this comes along. One thing that I do have to add right now, if you're trying to create an anoxic condition with an undergravel filter, this would not be a very good option for you, as it's going to be creating a lot of suction and current throughout the entire Undergravel filter. This would be a good option for people that are trying to retrofit an undergravel filter that they already have, that already has a power head or already is using a lot of air. But if you're trying to create a plenum or anything like that, I would not recommend using this and rather just continue with what you have. If you guys are interested in how this tank develops, I'm going to be doing a full tour on this tank as well as all my other tanks. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned to that, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. See you guys in the next one.